I'd like to welcome you all. Thank you for joining us for today's Paid Family Leave webinar for employees. I'm Adam Rossi from the Communication and Outreach Unit here at the Workers' Compensation Board. Joining me today is Courtney Valley from our Office of General Counsel. Today we will be providing you with an overview of New York State's landmark paid family leave benefit, including updates for 2023, important information regarding COVID-19, and resources to help you if you plan on taking paid family leave. We do ask that you please keep your phone lines muted. Your phone line should be muted, but please double check. We will be using the chat feature to receive your questions today. Again, if you look on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, you should see a little chat icon. Just click on that and a chat box should pop up and you can enter your questions in there. You can enter your questions at any point during today's presentation. However, we will be holding off until the end of the presentation to answer your questions. Courtney will answer as many of your questions as she can, but if you have questions that we either don't get to today, or if you think of something after the session ends, we will be providing you with resources at the end of today's presentation. So, like I said, since its implementation in 2018, paid family leave benefits have been significantly enhanced to further improve the lives of working New Yorkers and their families, including providing more paid time off, more uses for paid family leave, and more financial security. In today's session, we'll provide you with an overview of New York's paid family leave and how it works, including the uses, wage and time off benefits, employee contributions, eligibility, and how you request paid family leave. We'll also cover updates for 2023, information related to FMLA and COVID-19 quarantine leave, and we'll highlight the many resources available to you. We'll start with a little bit of background. Why do we need paid family leave? For too long, employees have struggled to maintain their jobs when they need to care for a loved one during a specific time of need, whether that's welcoming a new baby, caring for a family member with a serious health condition, or dealing with family pressures when a loved one is deployed abroad on active military service. More recently, many employees have been challenged by having to quarantine due to COVID-19 or to care for their minor dependent child who is subject to a mandatory quarantine or order of isolation. Employees in these situations face the stress of losing income when they need to take time off to help their family and fear their job may be gone when the family situation is over. In response to these needs, New York took action. In April of 2016, New York paid family leave, the nation's strongest and most comprehensive paid family leave policy, was signed into law. Paid family leave is employee-funded insurance that helps employees be there for their family when they're most needed. Because of paid family leave, workers across New York no longer have to choose between caring for their loved ones and their jobs, as we now have employee-paid insurance to help in these critical times. Paid family leave provides job-protected, paid time off, so you can bond with a newly born, adopted, or foster child, care for a family member with a serious health condition, or assist loved ones when a family member is deployed abroad on active military service. Under legislation signed into law in March of 2020, paid family leave also provides paid time off and job protection so employees can care for themselves or their minor dependent child when under a mandatory order of quarantine or isolation due to COVID-19. We will go into more details on these uses later in the presentation as they are a bit different from the others. In addition to paid time off, paid family leave also has strong employee protections. You are guaranteed to return to the same or a comparable job after taking paid family leave. A comparable job is defined as a position with comparable employment, benefits, pay, and other terms and conditions of that employment. You are guaranteed continuation of health insurance while out on paid family leave on the same terms as if you had continued to work. If you contribute to the cost of your health insurance, you must continue paying your portion of the premium while on leave. You are also guaranteed protection from discrimination and retaliation. Requesting or taking paid family leave cannot be held against you. So let's take a closer look at the three basic uses of paid family leave. We'll start with bonding with a child. Paid family leave provides both parents time to bond with a new child within the first 12 months of the birth, adoption, or foster placement of the child. Parents who work for different employers can take paid family leave at the same time to bond with the same child. Parents who work for the same employer can take it at the same time unless their employer prohibits it. If that's the case, then they can take the leave separately over the first 12 months following the child's birth, adoption, or foster placement. It is important to note that expectant parents cannot take paid family leave for their own pregnancy. They can take it after the baby is born because paid family leave is used to care for someone else. A parent may be able to take paid family leave before the actual adoption or placement of a child if an absence from work is required for the adoption or placement to be finalized. Paid family leave is also available for employees to care for a spouse, domestic partner, child or stepchild, sibling, parent or step-parent, parent-in-law, grandparent, or a grandchild who has a serious health condition. New for 2023, siblings are also included in family members who are covered by paid family leave. Please check with your employer for details on when this went into effect or goes into effect for your policy. A few other important notes for family care. Domestic partner is defined broadly under the paid family leave law. It includes people who are not related by blood in a manner that would bar marriage in New York State and are dependent on one another for support. So, for example, an employee may be able to prove that they are in a domestic partnership by showing that they own property together or have children in common. A legal relationship is not necessary. Also, it doesn't matter if these family members live outside of New York or even outside of the country. Employees can take paid family leave to care for their family member as long as they are within close and continuing proximity. In other words, present at the same location as the family member they're caring for during most of the paid family leave period. This may include necessary physical care, emotional support, visitation, assistance and treatment, transportation, arranging for a change in care, assistance with essential daily living matters, and personal attendant services. In order to take this type of leave, your family member must have a serious health condition. A serious health condition is defined as an illness, injury, or condition that requires either inpatient care in a hospital, hospice, or residential facility, or continuing treatment or supervision by a healthcare provider. And we do want to note that a COVID-19 diagnosis may qualify as a serious health condition. Here are some examples of other conditions that may qualify as a serious health condition. Maybe you need one or more full days to care for your mom when she undergoes chemotherapy, or your spouse or domestic partner had surgery and needs help recuperating at home. Or perhaps your child is undergoing treatment for addiction and cannot attend school for a period of time. These are situations that may qualify for paid family leave and may be certified by the healthcare provider if they believe the condition constitutes as a serious health condition. The insurance carrier will make the final determination as to whether such conditions qualify for paid family leave. Since February of 2019, paid family leave also explicitly includes support for organ donors. Former Governor Cuomo signed legislation to expand the paid family leave law's definition of serious health condition to explicitly include preparation for and recovery from surgery related to organ or tissue donation, ensuring those who donate can be cared for by their eligible family members under New York's paid family leave. Non-serious medical conditions, such as the common cold or flu, routine dental work, or cosmetic treatments, are generally not included. However, if medical complications arise and your family member then meets the guidelines for a serious health condition, it may be eligible. The third type of leave is for assisting during a military deployment. Paid family leave benefits are available when a family member is deployed abroad on active military service or who has been notified of an impending call or order on active military service abroad and assistance is needed. Reasons for paid family leave for an active service deployment are the same as the military provisions of the Federal Family Medical Leave Act, or FMLA. They cover the employee's spouse, domestic partner, child, or parent. There are several instances where paid family leave will help, which you can see here on your screen. As we mentioned earlier, there are also two uses of paid family leave related to COVID-19, which we will be covering in a few minutes. Now let's look at the updates for 2023. Employees are eligible to take up to 12 weeks of paid family leave at 67% of their average weekly wage, capped at 67% of the New York State average weekly wage. An employee's average weekly wage is based on their last 8 weeks of pay prior to taking paid family leave. For 2023, the New York State average weekly wage is $1,688.19. That means the maximum weekly benefit for 2023 is $1,131.08. This is $62.72 more than the maximum weekly benefit from 2022. It is important to note that employees can take this paid time off all at once or intermittently, but it must always be taken in full day increments. To estimate your wage benefit, you can use the 2023 calculator, which is on the Paid Family Leave website. Paid family leave is fully funded through employee contributions. The contribution rate is reviewed annually and is subject to change by the New York State Department of Financial Services. In 2023, the payroll contribution is 0.455% of an employee's gross wages each pay period. The maximum annual contribution is $399.43. This is $24.28 less than in 2022. Employees earning less than the current New York State average weekly wage of $1,688.19 will contribute less than the annual cap of $399.43, consistent with their actual wages. To estimate deductions, you can use the 2023 payroll deduction calculator, which is also on the Paid Family Leave website. So to summarize the updates for 2023, the maximum weekly benefit is increasing from $1,068.36 to $1,131.08. Also, since January 1st of 2023, employers can deduct at the rate of 0.455% of an employee's gross wages each pay period, but capped at an annual maximum of $399.43. So now that we've covered the types of leave, the benefits, and the costs, let's discuss who's covered and eligible for paid family leave. Most employees who work for private employers in New York State are covered under paid family leave. If you work for a public employer, your employer may opt into the program. If you're a public employee represented by a union, you may be covered if paid family leave is collectively bargained. For covered employees, eligibility for taking paid family leave depends on meeting specific requirements for the amount of time employees have worked for their employer. Full-time employees who regularly work 20 or more hours per week are eligible for paid family leave after 26 consecutive weeks of employment with the same employer. Part-time employees who work a regular schedule of less than 20 hours per week are eligible after working 175 days, which do not need to be consecutive. Citizenship and/or immigration status is not a factor in employee eligibility. In 2021, Governor Hochul signed an amendment to the workers' compensation law, which expands coverage for domestic workers. Previously, domestic workers were only required to be covered if they worked at least 40 hours per week for their employer. Domestic workers who are hired directly by a private homeowner and who work 20 or more hours a week for the private homeowner are required to be covered for paid family leave. These workers are eligible once they have been in employment with that employer for 26 consecutive weeks. Paid family leave coverage is not optional for eligible employees. You can waive coverage if you regularly work 20 or more hours per week, but won't be in employment for 26 consecutive weeks, or if you regularly work fewer than 20 hours per week and won't work 175 days in a 52-week period. Seasonal workers are a good example of this, since they may work full-time, but only for a few months out of the year. If you meet the criteria for waiving coverage, your employer must provide you with a waiver form, which is available on the Paid Family Leave website. If you waive coverage, you will not make contributions, and you will not be eligible for paid family leave benefits. Employers should keep a copy of your waiver on file. If your schedule changes such that you no longer qualify for a waiver, your waiver will be automatically revoked within 8 weeks of the schedule change. You can also voluntarily revoke a waiver at any time. If your waiver is revoked, your employer will begin taking paid family leave contributions and collect any retroactive amounts due. Now we'll cover how to request paid family leave when you need it, as well as how disputes and discrimination issues will be handled. If you're an eligible employee, the maximum benefit is available to you once every 52 weeks. When you're ready to request leave, there are 3 basic steps. Step 1 is to notify your employer at least 30 days before the start of your leave if it's foreseeable, or as soon as possible. Step 2 is to complete the request forms. Then, step 3, you would send those required forms to the insurance carrier. The insurance carrier must pay or deny your request within 18 calendar days of receiving the completed request, or the first day of leave, whichever is later. You must submit your completed request package to your employer's insurance carrier within 30 days after the start of your leave to avoid losing benefits. You can get the paid family leave request forms from your employer's insurance carrier, or directly on the Paid Family Leave website if you go to paidfamilyleave.ny.gov/forms. If for some reason your paid family leave request is denied, or if you have another claim-related dispute, such as the amount of benefits or the timeliness of a carrier's decision, you may request to have the denial reviewed by a neutral arbitrator. Your insurance carrier, or your employer if they are self-insured, will notify you of the reason for denial and then provide you with information about requesting arbitration. Arbitration for paid family leave is handled by National Arbitration and Mediation, also known as NAM. More information on arbitration is available at nyspfla.namadr.com. As I mentioned earlier, your employer may not discriminate against you for requesting or taking paid family leave, and you are guaranteed job protection with the same or a comparable job upon return from paid family leave. If your employer does not return you to your same or a comparable job, terminates you, reduces your pay and or your benefits, or disciplines you in any way as a result of you requesting or taking paid family leave, you can file a discrimination claim with the Workers' Compensation Board. An administrative law judge may order an employer to reinstate an employee, pay any lost wages, pay attorney's fees, and pay up to $500 in penalties. The process and forms are available on the Paid Family Leave website at paidfamilyleave.ny.gov, or you can call the Paid Family Leave Helpline for assistance at 844 337 6303. We are frequently asked about similarities and differences between paid family leave and FMLA. There are several similarities between New York's paid family leave and the Federal Family and Medical Leave Act. Both provide leave for bonding with a child, caring for a family member with a serious health condition, and assisting when a family member is deployed on active military service abroad. You are also guaranteed that you will return to the same or a comparable position and that your health insurance will continue on the same terms as if you had continued to work. If you contribute to the cost of your health insurance, you must continue to pay your portion of that premium while on leave. However, there are several key differences. The first being that paid family leave is paid. FMLA is not paid. Almost all private employers will carry paid family leave insurance. FMLA does not include insurance, and it has a 50 employee threshold for eligibility. The length of time you work is also different. In paid family leave, if you regularly work 20 or more hours per week, you must be in employment for 26 consecutive weeks for that employer. And if you regularly work fewer than 20 hours per week, you must work 175 days for that same employer, which do not need to be consecutive. For FMLA, you must have worked for a full year and 1,250 hours in the last 52 weeks to qualify. The biggest distinction may be that under New York's paid family leave, you are taking leave to care for someone else, not your own health condition. For FMLA, you are allowed to take leave for your own health condition. Paid family leave is also only taken in full day increments, whereas FMLA may be taken hourly. Lastly, under paid family leave, you do not need to use other paid time off first. So as I've mentioned a couple times in this presentation, there are two additional uses of paid family leave that took effect under emergency legislation enacted in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The legislation allows for a combination of New York paid family leave and disability benefits if you are under an order of mandatory or precautionary quarantine or isolation due to COVID-19. This is the only time that you may receive paid family leave and disability benefits at the same time. It also gives you access to paid family leave if your minor dependent child is under an order of mandatory or precautionary quarantine or isolation due to COVID-19. You may apply for a combination of New York State's paid family leave and disability benefits to receive your full pay up to a cap for some or all of the quarantine period. You may be eligible to receive 67% of your pay up to a maximum weekly benefit of $840.70. Disability benefits would then make up the difference in your salary up to a maximum weekly benefit of $2,043.92. That would combine for a total of $2,884.62 per week. There is no waiting period, and again, you will have job protection throughout the quarantine. Depending on the size of your employer, paid sick leave benefits may also be available and must be used prior to any paid family leave and disability benefits. We do want to note that this does not apply if you work for a public employer or an employer with 100 or more employees, because those employers are required to provide 14 days of paid sick leave. If you request leave for your minor dependent child's quarantine or isolation, you may be eligible to receive 67% of your pay, up to a maximum weekly benefit of $840.70. More detailed information about taking paid family leave for your quarantine or your child's can be found at paidfamilyleave.ny.gov/COVID-19. There, you'll also find information about New York State's COVID-19 paid sick leave requirements, FAQs, application forms, and more. So, as you think about how paid family leave may be able to help you and your family, we do offer a number of resources to assist you. You can find complete details on paid family leave at paidfamilyleave.ny.gov, along with other resources including paid family leave request forms and fact sheets, weekly deduction and benefit calculators, updates for 2023, and information about paid family leave quarantine leave benefits. If you are thinking about taking paid family leave soon, you can download the forms now and get started on filling them out. You can also contact the Paid Family Leave Helpline at 844-337-6303 for assistance. If you are not already subscribed for email updates on paid family leave, you can subscribe by clicking the Get Updates button on the bottom of the paidfamilyleave.ny.gov homepage. So we hope you found this presentation helpful. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss paid family leave with you. We are now going to take the rest of the time to answer your questions. We do want to ask you to please keep in mind that the board is unable to provide legal advice, which includes guidance about what you should do in specific situations. So if you have specific questions or concerns about a request for paid family leave, you should contact your disability and your paid family leave insurance carrier, since they are the entity that makes the decision to either pay or deny benefits. I'm going to leave this screen up here for you in case you want to jot down the helpline number or the website. And at this point, I am going to hand it over to Courtney to answer any questions that have come in. Please give us a little bit of time as we review the questions, and we will be back with you shortly. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. So the first question I see here is, does time worked at a temporary or agency employee count towards someone's eligibility once they're hired at as a regular full-time employee? So this is going to depend on who your employer is at the time when you're working for the agency. So if your employer is the agency and they're the ones who are providing paid family leave, and then you get hired separately as an employee, new date of hire, all of that, generally paid family leave eligibility is calculated separately per covered employer. So it's probable that in that case you'd have to regain eligibility for PFL if you were hired by like the place that you were assigned. So if you were not their employee, it's possible that the agency, the temp agency, contracted with the place that you were, where your placement was, and then if they were providing the disability and PFL coverage, then it's possible that you would become eligible, meaning that time would work. But this is a very fact-specific question, so it's really going to depend on kind of the nuances of your specific work contract and who the employer is for purposes of disability and paid family leave, who's providing the benefits, who is paying your wages, all of that. And because I can't provide legal advice, I'm not going to be able to tell you employer A or employer B, but generally eligibility for PFL is calculated separately per covered employer. Okay, next question here is the 175 days over the last 52 weeks or since employment if they work under 20 hours per week? So eligibility for PFL is calculated from date of hire. So it's an employee who regularly works less than 20 hours per week is going to become eligible for PFL after they work 175 days in the employment of a covered employer, even if it's not consecutive and it's from date of hire. But you do have to keep in mind that if someone works less than 20 hours per week, if they're not going to work 175 days in a year, you do have to offer them the waiver. So the 52 weeks is relevant because we're talking about if this is someone who, works once a week or something like that, they're going to qualify for a waiver and the employer has to offer them a waiver. Now the waiver is optional, so the employee does not have to fill it out. But if they regularly work less than 20 hours per week and won't work 175 days in a year, they have to be offered a waiver for them to opt out. But otherwise, eligibility is calculated from date of hire. The question I see here is, for a freelance employee, can the eligibility for PFL be met if the number of weeks of work exceed the minimum but are not consecutive? So a few things here. Okay, I see. So we just got a clarification referring to employees, not independent contractors. So that's good, because independent contractors, this would be a different answer. But if we're talking about employees who don't have a set schedule, who are freelance, the eligibility is going to depend on their regular work schedule. So if they regularly work 20 or more hours per week, they're going to become eligible for PFL after 26 consecutive weeks of employment. So the employment has to be consecutive. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're working every single week, but if they are regularly working 20 or more hours per week, they're going to become eligible after 26 consecutive weeks of employment with a covered employer. If they regularly work less than 20 hours per week, that's going to be that 175 days worked in the employment of the covered employer. Again, doesn't need to be consecutive, because this is actual days worked that we're talking about if we're on the 175 days. Otherwise, it's 26 consecutive weeks of employment, or the 175 days worked.
All right. Thanks, Courtney. Okay, so that seems to be all the questions we have. So again, just want to thank you all for joining us. Thank you to Courtney for taking the time to answer these questions. And just a reminder, if you'd like to receive paid family leave news, including information on future webinars straight to your inbox, you can visit paidfamilyleave.ny.gov. Scroll down to the bottom of the homepage and select Get Updates. We do also distribute information via social media, so make sure you follow the Workers' Compensation Board on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and again, YouTube as well. Highly suggest you go to YouTube and check out the recorded versions of these presentations that we have on there. And again, thank you all for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.